Well, hello, friends. It is a Monday morning, and I just got back from my first physical therapy appointment for this pesky little knee. And I have been thinking a lot about what I might have done wrong on the Tahoe Rim Trail or what I could learn from this injury, not only for myself, but also to share it with you and to help other backpackers prevent injury, especially as you get a little bit older. Because unfortunately, reality is that as time goes by, our bodies are not as resilient as they were when we were 20 something. So we do need to be careful. Let's start with a timeline of my Tahoe Rim Trail through hike and events that led up to this injury. I had planned to do the 174-mile Tahoe Rim Trail in about 2 weeks. I gave myself about 14 days of hiking, including starting on my first travel day when I flew out to Reno. I started about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and then I planned to finish on the following 2 weeks on Tuesday, kind of midday on that day, and then go into South Lake Tahoe and poke around, just have a good time before I flew out the following day. That would give me time to shower and get cleaned up and not be a stinky mess on the airplane. So that was my plan, but I also knew that that kind of extra day was a little bit of cushion should I get behind. And if you watch the video series, then you know that I started out a little slower than I expected. I planned to do anywhere from 6 to 8 the first day, and I think I did 6.5, so that was fine. I think I did 12 the next day. And was working my way up, but I actually had gotten back on the schedule that I had planned out, so I really was not concerned. In fact, the day that I hiked out and got hurt, I was actually thinking, wow, I've only got 5 days left to hike, but if I wanted to finish early to have a little bit more time to just play around Lake Tahoe, then I could do it in 4 15-mile days. So I was hiking great, feeling great, really enthusiastic, and just enjoying that amazing hike when I hurt myself. The night before, I had gone into Lake Tahoe, and that was my first town stop. And I noticed as I was getting ready to go to bed that I had just a little bit of puffiness right here under my knee. But it didn't hurt, and I didn't think much about it. And generally, when I'm backpacking, and this may be the same for you, I mean, you get aches and pains, especially if you're doing long days. The day that I did 17 miles, I admit that I was pretty achy and tired by the end of the day. But normally, I'll just take some Tylenol or Advil when I go to bed, and I wake up in the morning and I feel fine. I was like, yeah, okay, I got something going on with my knee. Next morning, I didn't even think about it because I didn't see any more puffiness. It just didn't even occur to me to worry about it because it wasn't hurting. And I took my time hiking out of Tahoe City, went down the road for a mile or so and then up into the woods, and was just really enjoying the hike. It was absolutely beautiful, much prettier than I expected, actually. Some amazing views, and I was having a really good time until I tripped. And the way I landed, my leg was like pretty well straight and just bang on straight down, and it felt like just electricity or shock waves went through my legs. I tripped with my left foot and came down hard on my right foot, which just sent shock waves through my knee. I didn't feel anything tear, but I just definitely felt like electric going through that leg, and I was like, that's probably not good. But like always, I just kind of shook it off and kept on hiking, even though that leg was hurting a lot. After 30, 45 minutes or so, I did take a break and rested, and then I took more breaks throughout the day, and I ended up doing probably 11 or 12 miles total for the day, kind of camping in the middle of nowhere along a ridge line. It was a flat area of trail about 3 miles from Watson Lake. I set up my tent, and I was sore, but I thought, again, take 2 Tylenol, call me in the morning, right? And then when I got up in the morning and went to get out of my tent, I couldn't put any weight on my leg. And I don't mean to just hurt to put weight, but I could not put any weight on this right leg, and I couldn't even use my trekking poles for support because my trekking poles hold up my tent. So I'm outside my tent, and I'm kind of standing there holding on to the top of the tent, and the tent was also held up by rocks because the ground was so hard that I couldn't get my tent stakes in. And I was really afraid if I leaned on it too much that the whole tent might come down. Thankfully, it stayed up all night, but I was a little bit worried about how it would fare if I put too much weight on the tent itself. Now, since I was kind of sore and achy the night before, and I did have the luxury of cell phone service, I had reached out through the Facebook group to see if there was any trail angel who could maybe meet me at Watson Lake or even possibly Brockway Summit, which was the next big trailhead coming up about 12 miles away, I think, just in case. There was one person who reached out to me, and unfortunately schedules were not working out. He wanted to come pick me up that night. I was like, no, I'm in my tent. I'm not near a road crossing, so that's not going to work. And then first thing in the morning when I woke up and found out that I couldn't put weight on it, I checked my phone and I saw that there was another person as a shuttle driver, but she said she was going to be in the area and that she would be happy to come get me. Instead of going on to Watson Lake where I would have to hike another 3 miles, I could go back down the trail about half a mile and then like a little quarter-mile side trail that would actually get me to Mount Watson Road where she could pick me up. So we agreed that we would do that, and she gave me a couple of hours. She needed the time to do some other things, and that gave me plenty of time to get packed up and kind of shuffle down the trail. And I did find that the more I moved, I was able to get some things done. I had to go down the trail a little ways to get my food canister, and I made breakfast, and I took down my tent using my trekking poles, both of them kind of as crutches, and just sort of hobbled down the trail until I was able to get there and meet up with Cece. She was amazing. She took me into South Lake Tahoe, which meant that since I was just outside of Tahoe City, we had to go up and all the way around the lake, but that's really where I wanted to go. And she did say that she felt like the urgent care was superior, so that was great. I wanted to be able to see a little bit of the town, although I wasn't really mobile. And it was easy for me to get public transport from there up to Reno to fly home when I was ready. She dropped me off at urgent care, and they took an x-ray of my knee. They came back and they did a whole bunch of other tests, and the nurse practitioner that was seeing me said, she was pretty sure that it was an MCL strain. But of course, when I got home, that I should go see an orthopedic or my primary care doctor. So they gave me a brace, and then they offered me crutches. But I said, no, I've got my trekking poles. That'll be just fine, because I didn't want to deal with even more things trying to get home. But it was really clear at that point that my hike was over, even though I only had 50 miles left to go. And that was super disappointing. And I have to tell you that I had a personal little pity party. I cried. I did all of those things. I came home 3 days early, and I got an appointment, thankfully, the next day on Monday with an orthopedist. And they looked at my knee and they said, yes, you have an MCL sprain. They recommended a whole bunch of things that I have been doing for the past week. They include using Arnicare orally and topically, diclofenac topically, taking Tylenol as much as is allowable for pain, using ice, getting compression socks, like these little sexy things that I found on Amazon. And I have been doing all the things. But I'm a week in from that appointment, and I woke up this morning and just completely discouraged because I don't feel like I'm any better. Work has been really tough. I did go back to work on Thursday. So I worked Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and I was scheduled to work on Sunday, and I just couldn't do it. The pain was too bad. So I called and said, look, I've got to take another day to rest my leg. So I'd had 3 days off my leg, went to work. Work was, they've been amazingly accommodating. So I'm really thankful that I have a good employer that really cares, and they're accommodating me in terms of letting me sit so I don't have to be walking all the time, and just adjusting my work duties to make allowances for the injured leg. But at the same time, it's painful. And honestly, I'm very thankful for experiences in my life that have given me the perspective and the empathy that I need that perhaps I didn't have. There are people in my family who've had some pretty catastrophic injuries, and while you feel bad for them, unless you've had a really painful injury, sometimes it's hard to put yourself in their shoes and feel like you can really understand what they're going through. This injury has given me that perspective. My divorce gave me a whole lot of perspective about emotional trauma, not just from divorce, but other issues. So even though that experience and this experience is difficult and painful, I'm also aware that I'm learning from it. So I'm very thankful for that. And if you are going through something like this, I just want to tell you, I see you, I feel you, and I know I'm going to get through this, and you're going to get through whatever you're dealing with as well. Hang in there. But back to the mistakes that I made. What did I do wrong when I was on the Tahoe Rim Trail, and could I have prevented this particular injury? I don't know that I could have, but it was interesting because after 10 days of hiking, I was like, yes, this is awesome. I haven't even fallen. So maybe I jinxed myself, because normally I trip and sometimes I fall on a long distance hike. That's kind of normal, especially when it's super rocky. But thinking back to the very beginning, I was smart in kind of ramping up a little bit slowly, and I was completely okay with that because I had a schedule, but I knew I could get back on track. When I got to Echo Lake, and I think that was day 5 maybe, I didn't want to go into South Lake Tahoe like a day or 2 in. I could have gone into South Lake Tahoe from Kingsbury, which I think was my 2nd and 3rd day, but it was too early and I was carrying all my food. I started out with like almost 7 days worth of food because I knew I could supplement at Echo Chalet and carry on. I also knew I could go into town from Echo Chalet. I could have gone and camped at the Tahoe Valley Campground. I could have got an Uber and gone into South Lake Tahoe and stayed at Mellow Mountain or stayed at a hotel or a casino. And I didn't want to do that because I didn't want to take the time off the trail. So I felt like I was a little pressured because of the specific time constraint I had. I had a reservation for a flight coming home. I had a reservation for the hotel the night before I got home. And I wanted to make sure that I stayed on that schedule. So even though I knew I had a little bit of cushion, I didn't want to use it early on. So I was powering through. I stopped at Echo Chalet. I spent a good couple of hours there. I had a nice time. And then I hiked on into Desolation Wilderness, and it was beautiful. And I felt okay with that decision at the time. I got a nice sandwich and some town food, so I didn't feel like I was depriving myself of anything. But now that I look back, I think maybe I should have just allowed myself the time to go into South Lake Tahoe or to go into the campground and take a shower, do my laundry, rest a little bit, and just give myself a good, maybe 14-hour stretch that I was just resting and recharging, and I didn't do that. I powered on. I went into Desolation Wilderness, went through Desolation Wilderness, came out of there on a 17-mile day that I hadn't really planned, although I did have an 18-mile day in my schedule. At that time, I had adjusted the schedule to where I was only thinking I'd be doing like 15 or 16-mile days, but because I couldn't find the campsite where I had intended to camp, I had to continue on for another 3 miles to get to Richardson Lake and camp there. So I pushed hard that day. The next day, there was a lot of downhill. It was pretty rocky. And then going into Tahoe City, I flew the 7.5 miles from where I camped into town. So it was all downhill. Parts of it were rocky. Parts of it were amazingly smooth and flat. I've been working on going downhill when it was smooth trail, but downhill, kind of doing a little bit of a jog downhill. It's kind of hard to explain, but you kind of put your weight forward a little bit and let the gravity carry you and sort of do a little jog down, and it's a faster way to get downhill. So I've been practicing that skill, which is relatively new for me. So that puts more weight on your knees because you're pounding a little bit. Didn't seem like a problem. I was thrilled. I'm like, gosh, I did 7.5 miles in 3 hours, which is normally what I would take to do about 6 miles. So I was moving really fast. Got into town. Even though I was a little frustrated I couldn't get into my hotel room at first, I had a great day in Tahoe City. I had a great rest that night. Took my time. I don't think I even left town till my checkout time of about 11. So I was just kind of taking it easy, feeling good about the schedule, but maybe not listening to my body or not giving my body enough time to recharge a little bit earlier in the hike. So when this injury happened, I had been hiking for, I think, 10 days straight, and the shortest day I had in that was the 6.5 miles that I did the first day. I was pushing hard. I wanted to get done, even though I was loving the trail. I did want to get done. I wanted to finish on time. And like I said at the beginning, I was even thinking about maybe can I finish an extra day early if I do some 15-mile days. I was hiking strong. I felt great, but maybe I wasn't listening to my body as much as I should have. In hindsight, I should have taken that town stop, that overnight in South Lake Tahoe when I was at Echo Chalet. I should have maybe gone back from Tahoe City. I wasn't that far out when I tripped and I hurt my knee. I think I should have just sat for an hour or so and maybe tested it out, see how it was feeling. And then instead of hiking forward, not been afraid to go back. But when the thought crossed my mind to go back into Tahoe City, I was like, oh, it's a weekend. It's going to be really expensive. I have to find a way back there. And I just thought, well, if I press on, if I get to Brockway, I can get off if I need to. And I wanted to continue on and finish. I really wanted to finish. So I guess maybe I had a little bit of summit fever and I wasn't listening to the signals that my body was sending. I wasn't listening when I landed so hard on that leg. I just thought, like anything else, this is going to be better. It'll be better by tomorrow. If I sleep on it, I've taken lots of Tylenol to hopefully reduce any swelling. I'll sort that out tomorrow. And some things aren't better by tomorrow. Now, here I am, and I'm a week in, and the physical therapist told me this morning that it's probably going to take me a good 6 to 8 weeks to heal completely, which now that it's August, that would be October, and odds are I'm not going to be able to finish the Tahoe Rim Trail this year. which is really sad. So I had an amazing experience. I would love to go back and do those last 50 miles, but I don't know when the time will be right for me to do that. Even looking back at my plans for the whole year, I had wanted to do 4 through hikes this year. I did the Trans-Catalina Trail, started the Pinhoti and had to get off because of a death in the family. Tahoe Rim Trail ended because of an injury, and I was hoping that 4th through hike might happen in September and October, and instead I'm going to be convalescing and trying to repair this knee. That goal of 4 through hikes in a year is gone. Now I have to just take heed to the lessons that I learned and the mistakes that I made by pushing too hard and give myself the time to heal, accept the fact that it's okay to take that time, and it's not bad to rest and recuperate when you need to, and just learn to take things slow and not push myself too hard and not be too hard on myself mentally and emotionally for the challenges that come with healing from an injury and the challenges that come from chronic pain that gets in your head and affects your attitude, which I do admit has been pretty dark on a few days. So that's where I'm at. But yeah, there's a few things that I think I could have done differently, a few things that I could have improved, and hopefully I will take those lessons forward into my next backpacking trip. And hopefully maybe that's helpful for you too, to learn to listen to your body, take care of yourself, and make sure that you are safe and healthy on your next backpacking trip. So thanks for being with me, and I'll see you here again next time.